everybody. Oops, and that's Nelson. He come to sit on my knee, and then as soon as I've said hello, he's jumped off and my book's gone flying. Oh dear. Right, it's Catherine from Jayne Catherine on Books, and I'm here with one of my Spotlight on Short Stories. And before we start, I just want to say a big thank you to all of you for getting in touch, for the lovely well wishes and everything. That's really lovely. It really was touching. So thank you so much for that. So at the end of December, I had got a few to read to meet my target for Goodreads. I'd put a target for 85, which is usually I can read about 100, 120 when I'm on form, as you know if you've been here a while. But you know, I was a bit slumpy in the first lockdown of the pandemic, and I did improve as time went on, and you get used to everything. But I was a bit short, and I know it's only a Goodreads thing, bit of fun, but I wanted to meet my 85, so I gathered up all my short stories that I'd got that I hadn't read, and just flew through them all to make my targets. But I thought I'd tell you about them. The first one, why do you wear a cheap watch? I'm trying to be a bit close now. Why do you wear a cheap watch? This is by Hans Verlade. This is the Penguin Modern Classic collection. It's actually translated from the German by Michael Hoffman. I gave this 2 stars. I really, I don't know if some of this was lost in translation, or it started off, I was really enjoying the first story, which is the title one, and then it had a bit of a strange ending for me, and unfortunately I didn't enjoy this one, so hence the 2 stars. But you know, you might, it's part of the Penguin Moderns, so you might want to have a look at that if you've got the collection. The next one, The World's Wife, which is Carol Ann Duffy, and she is one of my favourite poets, but this wasn't one of my favourites of hers. It was a bit alternative, a bit out there for me. I'm quite, when it comes to my poetry, I'm quite a traditional sort of gal. Now this is poetry supposing that we are talking from the wife's perspective of famous men and what their wives would be saying. So we've got Mrs. Darwin, we've got Delilah, we've got Mrs. Midas, we have, who else have we got in here? Elvis's twin sister. That's a bit random, isn't it? Frau Freud. That takes some saying. Frau Freud. This goes, ladies, for argument's sake, let us say that I've seen my fair share of dingerling, member and jock, of todger and nudger and Percy and cock, of tackle for 3 for a bob, of Willie and Winky. In fact, you could say I'm as au fait with Hunt the Salami as Miss Lewinsky. Yeah, so yeah, I think we get the underlying gist of that one. That wasn't too bad, that one, but you know, very tongue-in-cheek at times can Carol Ann Duffy's poetry be. But I gave it 3 stars, but she's one of my favourites. 3 stars, you know, it was okay. It was okay. Then next we've got The Pretty Book of Symbols, and I'll put the picture up here because this was on my Kindle, and this is a really interesting little collection of interpretations of symbolism that you have in dreams. And if you know, you wake up and you had a really strange dream, you can go and look at what that's all about. And also if you see, you know what it's like, sometimes you're thinking about somebody and then they telephone you. Those sort of, not consequences, but, you know, things that can happen serendipitously. Is it serendipitously or yes, you know what I mean. And you can be thinking about somebody, like sometimes I'll think about my mum and then a favourite piece of music will come on, that sort of thing. So all those sorts of things you can look up. And I know there's loads of books out there looking at symbolism of dreams and things like that. But this is by Claire McNall and I really enjoyed it. I gave it 3 stars. Then the next one, little children's one, middle grade, The Case of the Missing Treasure. This is by Robin Stevens. And A Murder Most Unladylike mini mystery. Now this series is well loved. It's about Daisy and Hazel, and we've got the Right Honourable Daisy Wells, and she's decided, you know, she thinks that she's going to be a detective, so she sets up this detective agency, even though she's, you know, she's not that old herself really. And Hazel is one of her friends. The premise of this is to find some missing treasure, and it all revolves around the British Museum in London. It was okay. I gave it 3 stars. I think it's a series that the kids will love, and I know that there's many of them out. I don't know, I mean, on the back there's 2, 4, 6, 7 out. So this was a nice little, you know, sometimes you just want a little bit of an easy read, and you can pick that up. It's a puffing one. And then next we have The Old Nurse's Story by Elizabeth Gaskell. Now I do like Elizabeth Gaskell's writing, and this is one of the Penguin Little Black classics. I do miss going to Waterstones, because they always have all their little, you know, like the Read for a Pound books, and they'll have the Little Black classics, they'll have the other little Penguin classics, Penguin Modern, and I mean this was 80p, so you know they're nice to just pick up. This, The Old Nurse's Story, a bit gothic, a bit ghostly. They were okay. I gave them a 3-star read. No great shakes really. I don't think, just my personal opinion, that Elizabeth Gaskell, I'm not sure that the short stories suit her style. I really enjoy her books, but it was okay, 3 stars. Then next we had Winter Wishes, and again another middle grade. It's actually illustrated by Alison Edgson, and it's a like an anthology of little middle grade stories. This was sweet. I got this really to read to our little granddaughter Lily Rose, and there's some cute illustrations in it. The thing I liked about it as well is that there was a nice message about being kind to people. There's one where the pack of huskies and the little pup goes out for the first time, and he decides to wander off and thinks he can manage on his own, and you know, and the moral of the tale is you mustn't leave the grown-ups because you could get lost, and you know, those sorts of messages, but very heartwarming. Finding Bigfoot, so lovely stories, and I think I'm looking forward to reading some. We have to read them over Skype, as you know, with the things being as they are, but pick that up if you know. I do recommend it. A lovely little collection of animal tales. So next I reread A Snow Garden by Rachel Joyce. Now Rachel Joyce is one of my favourites. We have actually met her. She's a lovely lady. She came to, a few years ago now, she came to the Beverley Book Festival, and this is The Snow Garden and Other Stories. It says to Catherine, Rachel Joyce, so that was lovely. My favourite of hers is Harold Fry, The Unlikely Pilgrimage of Harold Fry. She does characters really well. I'm looking forward to getting her new one. Is it Beetle? It's not Beetlejuice, because that's the film. Beetle somebody. Beetle something. It's about an old lady that goes in search of a beetle that might not exist and takes a very unlikely character with her. And I'm looking forward to that because she's excellent at characters. This was okay. I prefer a full grown novels. I prefer those. They're nice little short stories, very wintry, so for this time of year. Got a bit of snow out there, guys, today, and it's a beautiful cover. So it's well worth a read. I think this time of year is perfect for it. 3 stars. Now then, see, I managed to read all these quickly. The next, oh, this was really nice. We're on to the 4 stars now. The Gifts of Reading, Robert Macfarlane, and he writes beautiful nature works, and it's not very big. Look at that. Very nice, very poetic, beautifully written. I wouldn't have liked it if it had been longer. Isn't that strange? I gave it 4 stars and I really enjoyed it. It packed a punch in 34 pages. But it wouldn't have worked. It wouldn't have worked, I think, if it had been really dragged out. So that's a lovely little thing. Again, £2.50. So again, it's one of these that I picked up at Waterstones on the desk. Then next, and I can't find it, I don't know where I've put it. It's a short story by Kazuo Ishiguro. Now, I have read quite a few of his full-blown, I'm honestly with the full-blown, but his novels. He's an excellent author. He's a little bit alternative at times. He's, you know, sometimes you've got to read between the lines to get what's going on. But he is a very, very clever writer and very interesting, some of his books that I've read. And this was no exception. It did work as a short story. I gave it 4 stars. And I was surprised. I thought perhaps he would be somebody that wouldn't translate to short story format, but yeah, I was proved wrong, and it was a really good read, so I recommend it. I'll put the picture up here anyway because I don't know where I've put my copy. Then next we have The Suffragettes, and again this is one of the little black classics. This was written by various different authors. It's snippets from the old suffrage documents from back in the day. There's also, if you're not aware, there was an anti-suffrage movement. So there were ladies that thought that the suffragettes were going far too far. Ladies should be far more genteel and stop at home and do as they're told and do everything the little man says. And they've been brought up that way. You know, it was very unusual for women to speak out and to fight for the rights. And this is a lovely book. I really did enjoy it. I gave it 4 stars. It's probably nearer a 4.5. It's got loads of sort of newspaper clippings in it, things from adverts. Votes for Women Never, so that's something that the anti-suffrage people were putting out. I think it's, I don't know too much about the suffragettes. I know of them, but I didn't know too much. So this was a really nice aid memoir. It was nice to have it. It says the suffrage, NUWSS, the National Union of Women's Suffrage Societies, was formed in 1867 and united many smaller suffrage organisations. Under the leadership of Millicent Fawcett, the NUWSS method was non-confrontational and constitutional. And yeah, I'd get it. It was £1 and it's well worth having. So, very high 4 stars. Then I haven't got this. That was on my Kindle. This is called Ley Lines, The Greatest Landscape Mystery by Danny Sullivan. So I'll put a picture up here. This was fascinating. Ley lines are sort of sketched in geology. There's sort of points of reference that join together. So if you were to draw a fictitious line from A to B, you would find that along the ley lines are significant monuments or places that of worship, or for example Glastonbury Tor. If you follow the ley line, as it were, from Glastonbury Tor and keep going, you know, along the way you'll hit Stonehenge, and on it goes like that, and they go in all different directions. I don't think the physical lines though, are they, David? They're like points of reference that are called the ley lines. Excuse me. And it's fascinating to read about them. I didn't know too much about them, but they're supposed to be quite mystical, spiritual. Often you will find your pets, you will find, especially cats, are very drawn to sort of being comfortable and laying where you know, the ley lines would go across your garden, and all sorts of really mystical things like that. So if you're interested in those sort of books, also from the geographical point of view, it's very interesting. I've probably not made it sound all that thrilling in how I've tried to explain it, but you know, it really fascinates me that all these various statues or spiritual stones, like on Ilkley Moor, they've got the stones up there that join up with, you know, they're of significance. So it's well worth a read. And David's pulling a face at me, so obviously I've not made it sound very thrilling. But that's by Danny Sullivan, and yeah, it's well worth looking into the ley lines. I find it fascinating. It's you know, and if you want to tick one off on your non-fiction list, then, you know, there's a couple there for you. There's that one, and obviously The Gifts of Reading, which is Trees and Nature by McFarlane. Now, just finally before we go, I've not put this on the list, but I've recently finished this, and this is again another Penguin Modern, Letter from Birmingham Jail. I gave it 4 stars. Martin Luther King Jr. I found this fascinating, a very interesting read. I've not read anything by him before, and especially the Letter from Birmingham Jail is sort of written from the voice of a pastor, clergyman, that was wrongly jailed, and very, very interesting. In any non-violent campaign, there are 4 basic steps: collection of the facts to determine whether injustices exist, negotiation, self-purification, and direct action. We have gone through all these steps in Birmingham. There can be no gainsaying the fact that racial injustice engulfs this community. Birmingham is probably the most thoroughly segregated city in the United States. Its ugly record of brutality is widely known. Negroes have experienced grossly unjust treatment in the courts. There have been more unsolved bombings of their homes and churches than any other city in the nation. These are the hard, brutal facts of the case. And he goes on to the fact that then we've tried negotiation, we've tried to do all the things in a non-confrontational way. And sometimes, you know, you just have to stand up for what you believe. And he did do, and got sent away for it. Fascinating, well worth a read. And a great one, another one of the little modern classics. So there we go. That's all the short stories for you. I think it's something that we forget about, we don't often dip into, and I think they're very important reads. Actually, you can find out a wealth of knowledge, especially, you know, quite a few of them we get non-fiction short stories, which if you're not a big non-fiction reader, they're just about the right reading length. So nice to be back. Take care all of you, and I'll see you next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I get nearer that 1,000 and then I go back about 30. So I don't know. See you next time. Bye for now.